So the theme that I'm going to speak to today is that of It Takes a Village. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have a look at a professional learning network that we run in the City of Dublin Education and Training Board for support teachers. So we had picked this idea of being curiouser and curiouser because we found that being part of a network of other teachers has made us question everything that we're doing. And that's kind of the whole idea then, is the whole idea that we're sharing curiosities. So the first thing that we're going to do is to meet the villagers. You'll notice that there's just me here today, but in our original presentation that we were going to do at the AHEAD conference, there's myself, Dr. Stephen O'Neill from the CDETB Psychological Service, and then Denise O'Connor from a media teacher from Dublin College of Further Education. We're supposed to be doing this presentation together, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to speak to them. So just a little bit about myself. So I have been working in the City of Dublin Education and Training Board for 10 years. And originally I came in as a beauty and complementary therapy teacher, and more recently moved into a student support role working in a PLC college, where I was coordinating the support services for all of the students who were in Back to Education initiative or who were in our PLC programs. And a week before COVID sent us all home, I was appointed on a secondment as the Professional Development Coordinator for the CDETB. But part of my role over the past 2 years has been that I've facilitated this professional learning network for our PLC support teachers. One of the reasons I've been so interested and I suppose such a huge advocate for inclusion for UDL and for looking at the whole idea of student support in our sector is my own daughter is an early school leaver and she's ADHD, so she's 21 now, but she was out of school very, very early and has found it very difficult to re-engage. So I'm constantly trying to look at and find ways that she would have been able to engage with materials, with classes, with assessments, with loads of different things. So the next one of our villagers that we've got here is Dr. Stephen O'Neill. So Stephen is with the Psychological Service, and the Psychological Service are the ones that support this particular professional network. So they have support consultative groups that meet on a monthly basis for post-primary guidance counsellors and for post-primary special ed teachers. And then they also have that in place for guidance counsellors in further education. But there was this huge gap where in PLC colleges, despite the fact that there were loads of teachers working in support, there was no space for them to come together to meet and to share those curiosities that we've been talking about. And then, as I said, Denise is a media teacher. Denise joined our professional learning network this year. Denise came to us because she had started to work in the area of student support this year, but has absolutely no training in the area, but also noticed that the number of learners in her class group with additional learning needs, most especially neurodiverse learners, was increasing hugely year on year. And she wanted to have somewhere where she could go to be able to throw ideas around with people and to make sure that what she was doing was best practice. So just to give a little bit of context, I suppose both to our national and international listeners here, the City of Dublin Education and Training Board provides education in so many diverse settings. So we've got our colleges of further education, which would be known as post-leaving certificate colleges, where we might also provide services for students returning to education and in different programs as well. And then we've got youth reach centres, which are typically for early school leavers between the ages of 16 and 21. We've adult education services, education to prisons, training centres, community training centres, local training initiatives and specialist training. So you can see that there's a huge cohort of students that we provide for. But that also means that we've got a really, really diverse group of teachers that are working, or trainers or tutors that are working within each of these different areas. But the focus today for our PLN is on the post-leaving certificate. So That's what we're going to look at. So we've got this idea, we've got the Cheshire cat here saying that my reality is just different from yours. And I think that that's really important for us to examine, is the fact that the PLC sector, or this idea of doing a post-certificate Leaving Cert course, it's a very, very different experience. The courses are so short. The students begin in September, they're out again by May. And within that, if we have a student coming in who has any additional learning needs, it's a really, really quick turnaround time for us to, first of all, have the student coming in, and then going through the orientation or the induction process, being able to do a holistic needs assessment, being able to build a profile, being able to share that with their teachers in an agreed way, and then to start to put support services in place for that student to be able to reach their needs. They could have an assignment within the first 6 weeks of all of that, and then we start all of that again in September. So for teachers working in the area of support, that can be a real challenge. The next thing is then that the reality being different from yours is that what's happening in my college is completely different than what's happening in another. So the way that student supports are provided for in one PLC college is very, very different across all of the PLC colleges that we have. And some of our colleges have a disability support service, which is supported by the National Learning Network, and others don't. So kind of having this space makes it very, very different and very diverse. And the learners that are working in each of the different centres or coming to each of the different colleges are coming in to study really, really diverse and very different courses as well. So the idea was, like I said, we already had those different consultative groups that were put together for the guidance counsellors, but nothing for us. So Caroline Martin, who's the chief psychologist in the City of Dublin Education and Training Board, I had played Caroline because when I was doing my master's, I was really interested, or could see the idea of wanting to do workshops for teachers working with learners or working with students, and have been able to create a visibility around LGBTQI students. So I had already struck up a relationship with Caroline. And when they needed somebody to start to facilitate or coordinate a network for our support teachers, she contacted me because she knew I had trained in special education, and then I took over and started to run this particular PLM. So basically what happens is, on a monthly basis, you'll see here we've got Alice at the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. So once a month, in different colleges across the CDETB, we hold a professional learning network meeting, which lasts for 2 hours. We come together over a cup of tea, where we all sit together, and we meet on different days each month to try to facilitate teachers not having to miss the same classes, or not having to have them released from the same groups every single time. And by going into each other's colleges, it gives us an opportunity to meet with different principals. It means that different teachers get to be able to come at different stages. And we also get an opportunity just to reach out and to sit around and to share things with each other. What we found was, you'll see here that we've got Alice, and she is going down the rabbit hole. The teacups, the roses, the cards are flying. We've got that countdown watch as well, that, you know, when we got together and we started to speak, we could see that we were all in very, very different circumstances. So for example, I, as a beauty teacher, and that's where my training or my expertise was, even though I was trained in special education, I can have students coming to me for support who are working on a graphic design course. Now, I have absolutely no experience and no knowledge of any of the Adobe packages. So things can feel like you're just spiraling and spiraling and spiraling if you don't have somebody else that you're able to bounce your ideas off, or share with, or share with. And if you're doing that on your own, you'll see here that the Mad Hatter is saying it can be impossible or Alice is saying that it's impossible, but the Mad Hatter is encouraging her and saying, you know, it's only impossible if you believe that it is. And that's why we want teachers or support teachers to come together, because individually you're questioning yourself constantly as if you're doing the right thing. So when we come together, what we're doing is we've got the signposts here asking, is it this way? Is it that way? You know, what way should I go, or should I go back? So using the space of these meetings meant that we were able to share our curiosities, and we use a model called the Arid Model, where it's a focused conversation where we're going through looking at things objectively, then reflectively, we're interpreting, and then we're making decisions. So this particular slide here says, I knew who I was this morning, but I've changed a few times since that. And when we come into these meetings, we think we're in one space, but by the time we're going out, we're in a completely different one. And this is where I'm going to channel my inner Stephen O'Neill. So this is kind of this is the science piece and the model that's used in all of the consultative groups and that we use as well in our professional learning network. So here you've got Kolb's experiential learning cycle and our cup of coffee and a couple of macaroons there at the side, because the coffee is very important in this situation. So we're going to start with looking at this idea of reflective observation. So when we come together, what we're doing is we're looking back at what we've been doing in our own centres or with our own individual learners or with a class group. And we're trying to assess that and look at what went well and what didn't go so well. In the next quadrant then, we discuss and try to make sense of the experiences that we had. So this was the abstract conceptualization. So we're trying to look at what it was. We critically discuss it and we're reflecting on it. We're trying to look at what went well. And if something went really well for us, why did that go well? But if it didn't go well, why did that not go well? Was it something that somebody else could try out and that they could do and that they could use in their own centre? And it was looking at, you know, this conceptualization is, what does that mean for us? And also, what does it mean for other people? The next quadrant then is the active experimentation. So this is where we go back out into our own centres, and for the next month or over the next year, depending on what the thing is that we're putting in place, we're testing out our conclusions and we're coming up with a really conscious plan of action. So that can be either individually, again, or it can be a centre-based thing that we're doing. And then we've got the concrete experience in the final quadrant. So that's where we act on something, we try it out, it's something that we do, and it's an experience that we have. We try it and we come back in again, back into that quadrant where we've got the reflective observation when we're all together and we're talking about it and we're teasing it out together. So some of the things that we have done is, for example, we created collectively, based on all of our own individual needs assessments that we were doing with our learners, we created a template for a needs assessment that would build up a holistic profile of the learners when they come into the colleges. Another thing that we did was, based on this experiential learning cycle, one of the key things that we were really having difficulty with as a group and within further education was working with neurodiverse learners. So we worked with Dr. Tish Balfe in DCU on developing a 2-day training session where Tish came in and she worked with all of the support teachers so that they could understand better ways to be able to work with learners with who were neurodiverse. And based on that, something, let's say, for example, Coláiste Dúlaigh are doing is this year they're running a specific course for neurodiverse learners in IT with a big focus on getting those learners into employment. But all of that came from the sessions that we've been doing together. So here we've got, instead of you guys taking part in a Mentimeter, I'm going to show you our teachers in the Professional Learning Network completed a Mentimeter. And some of the questions that we asked them, so this very first one was that we asked our teachers what were some of the challenges of being part of a professional learning network. And I know from the research that AHEAD have just done that one of the key recommendations around supporting PhET practitioners is going to be having communities of practice or a professional learning network so that we can work together. Some of the challenges are the teachers were just too busy. So missing classes, time, having access or being able to travel to some of the centres, they were really, really big difficulties. Places where the teachers, you know, somebody said here that they didn't have any challenges because the principal backed it. The time constraints, again, missing students and prioritising. They were some of the biggest difficulties. And again, access to centres. And all of this was pre-COVID. So I think that definitely there is a space for us moving forward to be able to shift some of these things online. I still think face-to-face is important, but when time is such a huge issue, this is something that we need to look at when we develop our network. The next question that we asked, and there is a link to this Mentimeter in the PowerPoints that will have been put up as well. So the benefits of the PLN for individuals as professionals. Okay, so some of the key things that came back was the majority of the teachers in our network do not have any form of training or expertise in special education. So the idea of being able to expand an understanding of learners with special needs was really important. Creating links with other centres and people that you might not have met with before. They felt supported, that they're not alone. So they're not going down Alice's rabbit hole there of just not knowing what goes on. They felt less isolated, and then that idea of being able to experiment and becoming enlightened. And the idea of having a network of like-minded people and meeting support teachers from other colleges as well were really important on a professional level. The next thing we asked was, what are the benefits for you personally of being part of the PLN? So teachers, or our teachers had come back and said, hearing other people and other centres' difficulties gives you a sense that we're not alone. So we're back to that Mad Hatter's Tea Party where we're all sitting down and we all have a common purpose and we're all in this together. An opportunity to learn about other opportunities open to teachers and how to seek supports and funding towards solutions. So very often people didn't know what the funding options were. And we also had Eamon Macaulay, Programme Director in DCU's School of Inclusive Education. He came in and spoke to us about training opportunities around doing a postgraduate diploma in special ed. So getting access to those kinds of things were really important. Feeling that together as a wider community we have a voice, and come away from those sessions feeling really positive. So that was another key point that came from it. And having it affirmed that what we're doing is actually really good practice. So this idea that sometimes we're trying out UDL and we don't even realise it. People were doing things and they didn't know why they were doing them, but they were good practice. So the next one was, has your participation in the network impact on your centre? So the teachers from College to Dulig said, yeah, because now they're able to specifically deliver a course for neurodiverse students. Somebody in an adult ed centre had said that it gave them an idea about what centres the learners might be able to go to after they finish on their programmes. So the PLN, we opened up to loads of other people if they wanted to come in and to attend any of our sessions. It was open to them to do as well. And they felt that it did because the new ideas that they had were going back to centres. So for example, one college had shared its idea around how they do a specific orientation programme, and other colleges have tried that out and it has proven really, really successful. And then about impacting on your students. So has your participation impacted on your students? So one teacher said, not yet. But the sharing of experiences may help in delivery of services in the future. Another said, yeah, especially those with ASD, because that has been one of our main focuses. And then someone else said that they feel that improvements in practice are a result of a number of different things. So participating in the network and talking locally with the colleagues that you have and reading into things and reading in other reports has been really important. So I think at the end of all of this, what's really important here is we've got an image of Alice and the Mad Hatter and saying, when you can't look on the bright side, I'll sit with you in the dark. So there have definitely been times and occasions where things have completely not gone well and teachers are feeling completely overwhelmed. And this is a really important supportive space that teachers can come to and they can feel supported. So this final part is, you know, the secret, Alice, is to surround yourself with people who make your heart smile, and it's then and only then you'll find wonderland. I have had the huge benefit of working with really passionate, really dedicated, and really inclusive practitioners who are really trying hard to do their best. And I feel really supported that I found a tribe within this PLN, and it has definitely informed my practice, and I'm really, really grateful for it. So that's it. I'm done.
Thank you.
I'm going to
Thank you
stop
so much.
sharing.
I love that idea of a tribe, you know, an inclusion tribe that you're in there in CDETB. I'm looking forward to seeing what your little tribe looks like when we all come together. And you have specific chants or things that you do as you arrive in. I suppose just I'm gonna ask you a question in a minute, just around maybe what would you see
Sure,
as
no
the
problem.
kind of enablers of a network like this, and potentially the kind of barriers to the sustainability of a network like this. Just as you're having to think about that, just somebody in the chat box had asked about when the next UDL course might come. I presume they're referring to AHEAD's UDL badge, which I know Carrie is actually currently undertaken and is almost, I think, almost finished as part of her work. But we're just some initial ideas are to run the badge later on again this year. I'm not really in a position yet to frame up exact dates or things like that, but we're probably looking at September, October, and we're probably hoping to make that a sort of decent sized run of the national run of the course, so that lots of people have opportunities to engage with it, because it is one of those opportunities again where people begin to connect as a community, because we do work in a sort of in groups within that course. So Carrie, just wondering then, do you have any reflections on maybe what are some of the challenges to sort of sustainability of a network like this, and also what you see as the key enablers? What is it that makes this network work?
Absolutely. So definitely this is going to be both a barrier and an enabler, and that's support from centre management. Being given the opportunity to be able to attend these sessions is really, really important, because it can sometimes be seen that in the short term you're missing classes, but the overall impact and the long-term impact that attending these sessions and sharing your practice has is huge. So that kind of idea of once a month missing 2 hours of classes in comparison to what you're able to bring back and share with your centre, you know, people need to really look at that and to weigh that up and to see how can that be facilitated. So definitely that's why one of the things we're going to have to look at as an organisation is, can we move that online so that teachers are missing less classes, and they don't have to travel across the city. You know, I suppose because we're inner city as well, it can be very, very difficult to get from one side of the city to the other at the times that we've had it. So that can be a barrier. But where teachers are really supported and encouraged to come to the meetings, that's a huge enabler.
Excellent. I think we have one more question. Carol, if you could
Sure.
begin to get yourself ready, Carol, to mute your video and audio and begin to share your screen just while we take this last question for Carrie, that would be great. So Lucia Venturi, apologies if I'm not pronouncing that right, Lucia, asks, how do you use the experiential learning cycle within the network?
Yeah, so it's just literally, none of these things are ever pointed out explicitly to anybody about what we're doing. It's something that just happens from, you know, once somebody has shared what they're doing and a good practice, and again, it could have been around UDL. So they share something that they're doing, and then you go, do you know what, that would really work in my context. Then they just go back out and they just give it a go. And when we come back in again, they talk about whether or not they tried it. And one of the things that has been really important is that that's not necessarily within that month. So for example, like the orientation was something that had to wait a full year before you were able to implement or to try it out again. So something that somebody planned, then they gave it a go, and then they've come back, and over the course of the 2 years, they've discussed how that worked for them, and we've all reflected together on a way that we might try it differently. So for example, I was in the college that had tried out the orientation, and then another college tried it, but they did something completely different, and I took a piece of that and we put that in ours. So that's the way that experiential cycle works.